Hello, everyone. Welcome on our today's session. I hope that everybody are having their cup of coffee or tea and have a nice evening, morning, depending on your location. We're going to start the webinar shortly, as I see people are connecting still. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Alexander Korobko. I'm Product Marketing Manager at Kaspersky Corporate Business. And today I would like to talk to you and share some thoughts and experience about the EDR, about endpoint detection and response, but primarily not in the technology aspect, not about the technology concept and the details of how it works, but talk first of all about the myths that are around that technology, the objections, the questions that we see, and we at Kaspersky usually have to address. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. I'm going to start with a quick intro, take a look at statistics a little bit on the trends. Then we go straight to the EDR myths and the reality that is around. And we will finalize the session with a short demo of how EDR actually looks like, how people can interact with that technology, how the users can get value simply from the product. I'm not going to tell you exactly what product we are going to take a look at. It's pretty simple, but we will get to this, don't worry. Also, you have the question tab. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. And I will extremely appreciate if you share some thoughts and objections and exact myths about EDR that you specifically know, that you may be facing also. So first of all, I would like to share with you the statistics that was from the Gartner. Here on the slide, you can see the Gartner hype cycle from the Endpoint Security Solutions 2021. And for those of you who is not familiar with that graph, it shows the maturity of a particular technology from the beginning when it just entering the market, when it gets a lot of expectations from technology savvy users, from people who are innovators and trying to adopt the new technology and get their hands on it as fast as they can. Then the technology gets a lot of hype and information in the news, maybe on the blogs and things like this. Further, the technology either survive or not, because people understand the limitations of the technology, the exact capabilities, the value it brings, and if the technology strives and proves its capability to survive, it goes to the majority of the users and gets a lot of respect and adoption. If you take a look at endpoint detection and response, it is almost on the plateau of productivity, as it's called in that particular framework. So it means that in less than 2 years, EDR will reach that plateau. Most of the cybersecurity industry will know about this. Most of the companies and customers will have it, or at least expect it in the cybersecurity solutions. And this is where we also see that pretty much any security vendor today has the EDR proposition in their portfolio. We see that those solutions are proposed as either separate solutions or the add-ons to the existing, for example, endpoint protection platforms. And it also provided today as on-premise solutions or the cloud solutions. So it's also possible to have EDR capabilities as a service from the cloud. On the other hand, we, in our experience, see that there is a gap between how customers understand how they perceive the technology and the real capabilities. This generates myths and questions about the need of those technologies, whether I can leverage the most benefits from it or not, whether I have use cases to use it, what is the value for me. And on the right hand of that slide, you can see the quote from my colleague from pre-sales team that says that he needs to explain what EDR is and what it is definitely not, pretty much on every meeting, on every interview with a customer. So this is where I want to start with the first myth, and that's the most, I think, famous one, my favorite. EDR is just a better antivirus. Even that we have a clear definition, I think, from many vendors already, from analytical firms, not only shown as a quote on that slide, but many more. Sometimes people still have some doubts and do not get clear answer of what it actually does, what the technology actually can do or not. I cannot say for sure what comes into your mind when you read those quotes, but if you take a look at the right of the slide, you can see the picture, what neural network thinks of it. That's the picture from the Midjourney. I just input the text description from various agencies and from various vendors of what EDR is, and that's what I got. Pretty abstract picture with pretty abstract images. And I think this is what may happen with people that we talk to, with people who try to understand what the technology is, what it's capable of. And this is why we sometimes see that people understand endpoint detection and response as the centralized reporting system or centralized management system, a system that can control and manage various types of devices, can do patch management, can detect threats, and can build sophisticated policies for devices to prevent certain infections. But in fact, we can maybe answer those objections and answer those myths that EDR is not just a better antivirus by asking the questions from the customer pain points. If we are talking about the alerts, about the incidents and the threats that we see with the traditional systems, when we try to protect our endpoints, we can ask ourselves several important questions. If I have some detection, if I have some red light in my security solution, what actually this means? What is the context of that alert? What are the processes? What are the child processes? What that file actually does? I cannot understand from the name of that file whether it's actually really bad or just a middle. Do I have other hosts in my network, neighboring devices that may also be the victims? For example, I may have a device where the malicious file was exploited or launched occasionally by the user, and then on many neighboring devices, this file may be just stored and not launched yet. So maybe the attack scope is much broader than I actually see in my traditional security system. How the attack actually was propagated, how the malicious attachment came in my system, whether it was downloaded or this was the phishing campaign on my users, and what was the root cause? How can I understand what happened with my system and what countermeasures I can actually implement in my network? So EDR helps specifically to answer those questions. Antivirus software and even endpoint protection platform are not designed to answer those questions. That's the value for the EDR. So we need endpoint detection and response solutions when we conduct incident investigations, when we need to clearly understand what happened, what is the type of threat, with which indicators, with which threat groups it may be connected. We need EDR also if we want to respond to those things. By response, we mean not only the capability to delete malicious files, malicious attachments, but also to conduct the advanced responding. For example, isolate the host from the network. That's the capability that EDR brings. If you can isolate one host, you can stop the propagation of the threat through your network before you completely secure one particular device that was infected. Also, you can conduct the proactive response. If you know about particular threat that may be developing in the system, if it has some patterns before the particular exploitation or the damage to the system actually is shown, you can scan the system and the neighboring devices before the attack actually conduct the malicious activities. Find neighboring devices and stop the attack spread at the beginning. To do this, EDR actually has a lot of technology capabilities under the hood. It leverages machine learning behavior analysis. It stores a lot of telemetry, as we internally call it, to learn more and more about specific attacks. In many cases, these are known as indicators of compromise, indicators of attacks, and many more. And having capabilities to learn the patterns, to learn the traits of particular malicious activities, it is possible to have peace of mind and, well, be prepared for a particular attack group or the pattern or the technique that attackers and actors can use in your industry or in your geographical environment before you see some signs inside your network. So that's the main point. That's the main distinguishing point from other traditional security solutions that are in the market for many, many years. Second myth, pretty much related to any, I think, security solution that customers can ask in many cases, that nobody attacks me. I'm the small company, I'm not interested, and why should I invest in some additional detection methods and proactive response if nobody attacks me? Well, statistics shows that even small companies become more and more valuable entry point for attacking groups. And our statistics, our interviews with the customers shows that there is a huge cost even for small companies behind that. If we talk about the sophisticated threats, about the evasive threats that try to sneak in the systems, that try to avoid the traditional detection methods, traditional systems that may be relying on databases like signature databases, we see more and more examples of ransomware threats, of ransomware attacks that are becoming predominant not only in enterprise companies, but also becoming more and more popular and targeting small and medium-sized businesses. Well, that's the simple statistics, and there are some reasons behind that. First of all, the tool set to conduct those evasive threats and those complex attacks becomes more and more affordable. That's the statistics that you may have been seeing from our previous webinars, and guys from the great team showed it talking about the ransomware groups and the ransomware evolution. But the main thing here is that evasive threats and evasive techniques, evasive tool set becomes more and more available and not requires a lot of effort, a lot of skills, and a lot of money. You can start with a couple $100. And of course, if you want to leverage the most complicated tool set, it can be up to several $1,000s. But you can start with the small things. And this means also that those services are various. They're available on the dark market, available on particular forums, and they are even available as a service. Ransomware as a service. Yeah, people can even hire the campaign to target small companies that do not have analytic experts, that may not have security solutions in place. And this is why it's particularly important to note that those techniques may leverage legitimate tools. In many cases, we see that malicious toolset leverages PSExec or PowerShell, and this is why we need a more sophisticated detection tools like endpoint detection and response. Another reason here to see more and more threats to the small companies, and to answer the question that actually no, small companies are also under the threat and under the interest of the attacking groups, is that hackers are seeking options to reduce the international and public scrutiny. Many of those do not need a lot of attention. And of course, we've seen examples of huge data leakage and incidents in the enterprise companies like NVIDIA or Costa Rica government. But we see that attackers are seeking more and more opportunities with small companies. And for many of them, it's actually becoming the entry point for supply chain attacks. So it is important to understand that small companies are also the victims, and they also may require additional tools and more sophisticated detection tools than just a free antivirus. That's an important thing. Third myth is that EDR is suitable only for large enterprises. It has a lot of common with the previous one, but it has some definitions. First of all, many people think that EDR is capable only for advanced persistent threats. When you have an attacking group that is in the system for a long time, that has some traits, that has left some signs of the attack, and you can detect those. But in reality, that is not true. EDR can help you deal with various types of threats, with evasive threats like ransomware attacks, and they become predominant even in small and medium-sized businesses. People also have objection that those solutions are too expensive. They might be afraid that they do not have budget for those. They do not have budgets for solutions besides simple antivirus. In reality, that's not true today. Vendors do provide unified solutions that is flexible, that can be deployed just on top of the existing solutions. If you have some endpoint protection, you can just install additional license and have an add-on for the new capabilities. And it won't require any hardware or software reinstall. It will have the unified agent, and it may have even the console from the cloud, minimizing operational expenses. Another objection here is that in many cases, EDR is considered as time-consuming technology. And I heard that no IT generalists will waste time on that, to take a look at that console, to waste hours in a day just to answer security questions and to conduct the investigations. Well, but basically that's reasonable, because general IT specialist has a lot of questions to deal with. He has to manage a business system, he has to support users, and many more. And of course, I understand he may not have a lot of time to secure the systems, to take a look at the additional console, and to fine-tune the rules inside it. But in fact, the automated reaction that EDR brings can require less time. Imagine if you have some attack propagating in the system. You can have the report with a red light on one machine. On the next week, you will find the attack on the other machine. In a month, you will see the attack on your top management computers. But the reason for the attack, the propagation and the root cause may be somewhere else. And this is where the response, the automated scanning techniques, the response that EDR has actually will require less time, and it will save a lot of effort and money at the end of the day. Another myth is that EDR is a sophisticated tool. It requires security staff with really deep knowledge and skills. So objection number one is that companies may not have budget or people on staff. They may do not have security experts with deep knowledge. On average, honestly, this is true. I won't lie this to you, and I won't tell you that everybody can do EDR, that it's pretty simple, that any solution can be managed by IT administrator. It actually requires some level of experience. First of all, we understand that the landscape of modern threats and evasive threats is constantly changing, it's maturing, and this is why you need to be at least familiar with some concepts behind that, behind threat hunting maybe. To understand what the attack spread path is, what the indicators of the compromise, indicators of the attacks, what actually MITRE ATT&CK framework means. So yeah, that requires some skills. But today, vendors and we try to provide the solutions that help gain that knowledge. First of all, by education, by explaining those concepts even in the simple online help in the console of our solutions, or maybe by adding additional IT security administrator trainings that we also have, and by automated scenarios. Maybe providing guided response, maybe providing playbooks, but anyway, that is possible with the security solution. So it doesn't mean that necessarily we'll leave you just with those concepts. We help you just to grow personally and professionally. So maybe if you consider EDR and you have some objections and you're not sure whether you're ready for that, maybe that's the point where you can find additional growth options for your specialists and for your processes inside the company. Another objection is that those tools are most of the time considered too complicated. They may require a lot of time to fine-tune. They may require skills to write some scripting for additional rules. Actually, this is not true, because if you take a look at modern solutions like for example, that we have in our portfolio, you will find cloud-native solutions that don't require even the server installation, that have unified architecture, that have a single agent, that have low footprint and automated scenarios. But also you can consider the expert level solutions where you will have YARA rules options, capabilities to have MITRE mappings, to add custom indicator of the attack, etc. So it depends on your needs. Another myth that we have also is that the EDR is the only advanced tool that you'll ever need. So if customer understand the value behind the EDR, he may actually go further and think that maybe he can forklift everything that he had previously and leave only the endpoint detection response solution. That's also the common misunderstanding, and my suggestion here, and I highly encourage you not to think of it as a silver bullet. First of all, because endpoint detection response is focused on endpoints only. And yeah, endpoints is the valuable source for telemetry. Many things happen exactly on the end user devices, and we can get a lot from there. But statistics and some research show that in any company, in any enterprise company even, you can find devices that you either not own or they are not completely protected. So for example, these might be old-fashioned devices. They may have outdated operating system on that. They may have not enough resources, and maybe they're simply just not under the maintenance or not under the schedule to update the security solution. So this is where you need to have in mind that not all the devices may be completely protected, and you may lack the telemetry. And also, it's important to consider that you have network around those devices, you have services, and you have actually broad attack vectors. And this is why we constantly say that endpoints is not this protecting endpoint is not the solution for 100%. This is where actually extended detection and response solutions gain more and more popularity. This is where it's important maybe to take a look at XDR solutions. Also, we, in many cases, talk about the benefits from not only the endpoint telemetry, because it may be just local, it may be limited, not having all the knowledge, because there is a real world around and behind your behind your networking perimeter. So this is where threat intelligence comes into play, because it brings top-notch knowledge about the threat landscape, about the actors that may be present in your territory and maybe in your industry, and the knowledge about the tactics, techniques, and procedures that they may be using. So that's the available source that adds a lot to the telemetry of the initial endpoint detection and response. And of course, don't be fooled. When you see that vendors are proposing extended detection response solutions, at least ask them, what means the extended? What is behind the telemetry that they get from the security devices? Do they really have some cross scenarios? Do they get telemetry that is gathered from the networking devices, or maybe from Active Directory? When you try to investigate the complicated threats and you understand that particular privileges and credentials were spoofed, or the attackers try to get more and more access and privileges in the systems. So do their solutions provide those cross scenarios and correlate the telemetry from the endpoints and from the neighboring services and the network? So this is really important. We've seen examples where vendors simply rename their solutions from EDR to XDR. I'm not going to name that, but anyway, that's important to take a look at. I think the last myth that I have in the presentation is that EDR becomes shelfware really quickly. Many people think that if they do not conduct the investigations, the threat hunting day by day, they lose money, simply they do not get value. It depends on what customers are looking for. That's the main question that is, well, pretty much any customer need to ask himself, and we usually help answer those questions. So EDR can bring value just for a fraction of the day. It doesn't mean that you need to completely investigate all the detections. If you have some automated response options in place, you can just trust them and do not tune and tweak your rules day by day. If you have the solution that fits your need, you will use it constantly and will at least have peace of mind of being protected. By our experience, we see that different industries and customers require different solutions, and we do not talk about EDR solutions in our portfolio that one fits all. No, we have separate solutions with different customizable options. For example, we see that mature companies may require customizable indicators of the attacks in place, or they need a MITRE mapping to provide a reporting to the certs, etc. Or some customers of the smaller size may be completely happy with a simple kit to quickly analyze what actually happened in their systems. So it depends on the solution, how customizable it will be, whether it will have more tweaking options or the full incident response process in that. So this is what we also propose to the customers, and this is also what needs to take in mind. All right, so now I'm going to switch to the live demo. I'm going to share the screen and show you how the EDR scenarios can look in the particular product. In our case, we're going to talk about the Kaspersky Endpoint Security Cloud. Maybe some of you know about that product. That's actually the solution that perfectly fit for small and medium-sized companies. In April, we've launched a major update of that solution, and now it has a full-blown EDR capabilities to not only show the root cause, but also bring the response options. And I'm going to show how it actually works right into the system. So I'm going to show how easy it is to get value from that, and how customers can close simple scenarios with endpoint detection and response. So first of all, I would like to mention that that's the product that is completely cloud-based. It is brought from the cloudkaspersky.com. You can easily trial it for free for 30 days. And it's pretty easy to start using it. It has installation wizard. It has simple widget-based navigation and interface. And it has a unified agent that you don't need to bring to your employees. You can just send an email invitation, and they will have a link, and automatically the system will find the necessary operating system to install the agent. For those of you who know the product, who may be familiar with this, you may know and remember that in previous versions we had a EDR preview section right here in the console. Today, with a new tier, with a new version, we have renamed it. It is called Endpoint Detection and Response. And here I can see, as a user of that product, some particular detections in my system of malicious activities. Let's take a look at those. Let's examine what actually happened, not only to understand that that event was treated, that it was detected by the endpoint protection technologies, and it was actually stopped. That was the malicious file drop. But what's behind that attack? What's the root cause for that? So most important here that you can see is the attack spread path. That's the simulated attack, of course. That's a simple script that generated some child processes and at the end of the day dropped some malicious files. They were deleted, they were treated, and no malicious activity is happening now on the machine. But I can see, as a security specialist, what was happening before, how the attack actually happened. What was the reason? What was the initial process that generated those malicious files? And what was the initial files or the malicious attachments or the downloads that may be present during that attack? Below, I can see all the details about the parts of that threat. I can see the file hashes. If I want to take a closer look on what's actually behind that particular hash of the file, I can go to our Open Threat Intelligence portal and see that, yeah, that's the malicious file, that's the adware. And in fact, it was generated in 10 processes, in 10 child processes before the file was actually found. But what EDR can help me with is that I can add that particular indicator, that particular file or process, or the initial file that it was not maybe malicious in the first place. I can add it to the indicator of the attack scan. Simply in a couple clicks, I'm going to do this. Rename the rule and run the scan. So what's happening now is that system tries to scan that particular indicator on neighboring devices. Maybe that file is existing on neighboring computers, but nobody launched it, or maybe it just waits the command and control communication from the control server. Also, what I can do from here, I can isolate the device. I'm not going to do it right now, but anyway, be confident that if I isolate the host, it won't be contacting other devices and the malicious activity will be isolated. So let's take a look at details about the rules of the scanning. In the system, we have a special option that is called endpoint detection and response. Aside of the detections, if I have many of those, they will all be listed here. I can have some simple rules for the scanning. That's basically the rules for reactive and proactive scan. First one is reactive, and we've just initiated that. Let's take a look at this. So I've named the rule search for hosts, and now it has the indicator of the attack that was found on one device, and it will help me to take a look and search for the neighboring devices, whether they have some traits or similarities to that one. But what about the proactive scan? Maybe I know that particular attack is spreading in my region. Maybe, for example, for my industry, like it was with the WannaCry, with the healthcare companies. Well, and I know about it. Maybe I've heard about it. Maybe I've seen some cybersecurity blogs or reports from my security vendor, how I can implement it before something bad happens. Let's take a look at proactive scan rules. I have one of those here. For those of you who heard about Log4Shell, you may be familiar with that name because that's the variant of that malware. And I already implemented some indicators of compromise here. So these are MD file hashes for those types of threats. And I want to share with you where we can go and where we can actually get those details, where we can actually get those indicators of compromise, and how we can populate the security solution, how we can populate Kaspersky Endpoint Security Cloud before the attack will come in my environment. So that's the post about Spring4Shell from the April. And for those of you who know about the resource, the secure list, you know that we not only briefly describe how the attack actually looks like, but also describe what techniques and procedure it tries to evaluate, what are the victims of that particular vulnerability of or the threat, and we post indicators of compromise. So here we are. Those MD file hashes are easily added into the system. But let's take a look at maybe another threats. So here I have the actor, really popular one, and that's pretty fresh post talking about the tools that are used in ransomware campaigns, the DTrack and Maui. The victims of those actors are found in Japan, in Singapore, to my mind, in India, and in Russia. So if I know about that particular threat, I can be prepared. So first of all, I can put MD5 hash for the DTrack. Let's do this. And add another one for the Maui tool. So this is how simply I can put a new thread in the system just to prepare before something bad happens in my environment. Right now, the scan is conducting. The system tries to scan neighboring devices and investigate whether there are some indicators or similarities in my neighboring devices, in all devices that are covered by the agents. Also, I can define the scan settings, whether it will be done every day or on specified schedule. I can define the rules. Maybe I want just to get notifications. Maybe I also want to scan devices specifically to scan critical areas. Or maybe I want to apply strict rules, like, for example, isolating the host. If that malicious patterns will be found, the host will be isolated from the neighboring devices. So this is real simple. This is how customers can start leveraging the benefits of endpoint detection and response, and that's the true value. So in a couple clicks, I showed the scenarios, the most popular scenarios of EDR in the product. If you want to try it for yourself, again, go to Kaspersky web resource, go to cloud.kaspersky.com and try that solution for free. All right, so now I'm going to switch back to the presentation. And we'll briefly finish the takeaways. So to ramp up all the myths, all the things and concepts and misunderstanding and how we address those, I want to emphasize that EDR is really a standard. It's de facto standard for many organizations, no matter the size even. I want to emphasize also that to leverage more and the most optimal level of protection, in many cases, you need to combine the endpoint protection capabilities and endpoint detection and response. This is where they bring the most value here. And of course, remember that we as a vendor understand the specific needs of the customers, that customers from various industries may have different requirements from the system itself. And this is why we do not say that one solution will fit all. We have specialized things, we have optimum solution, we have expert level solution. Just stay with us and take a look at our portfolio to select what is really fitting your needs. So this is it from my side, from the presentation and the demo. I'm going to take a look at the questions, if we have some of those. Oh, yeah, I think we have some of them. Just let me enlarge the window. All right. First one, yes, you've shown the indicators of compromise during the demonstration. How about the indicators of attack? Do you have them in place? I guess that's the question from the person who knows about the threat hunting concepts and knows about the indicators. Just want to clarify that indicators of the attacks are, well, maybe more sophisticated concept. In many cases, indicators of the attack are considered as a dynamic technique to describe some particular threats. And this is why when I've been showing the Kaspersky Endpoint Security Cloud, we implement only the most simple ones. The MD5 and SHA-256 hashes are the simple things. That's pretty much really easily understandable concept. This is why in the simple solution, we implement only those. But if you're going to take a look, for example, at EDR Expert, you will find indicators of the attack there. Yeah, you can leverage that concept there, and you can implement more sophisticated things there, like customized IOAs and even putting YARA rules there. So in KES Cloud, you won't find indicators of the attacks, but the simple ones necessary for most cases, like indicators of the compromise, you will find there, and you can easily populate them in the system. So I hope it answers your question. Another question, so why do I need to have endpoint protection if I can have EDR? Pretty interesting question, but let's distinguish those classes of products. First of all, we've seen today that EDR has its value. There are some specific scenarios that those solutions address. But if we talk about endpoint protection, you should understand that there are capabilities that are present there and not found in EDR. For example, reducing attack surface, like application control, device control, patch management, encryption management. All of those traditionally is found and implemented in endpoint protection platforms. But anyway, if you have a unified solution, if you have solutions, for example, from Kaspersky, you can easily have the combination. And main idea here is the endpoint protection usually becomes the platform, the foundation level to build the stronger security posture. I remember the topic from the IDC. That agency once said that if you do not have powerful endpoint at the foundation, you will not leverage the full potential of EDR. If you have not really capable EPP on the foundation, well, EDR will not work for you. So this is where EDR is better to build on the strong endpoint protection platform. And it doesn't mean that you can just have EDR and have all the capabilities that traditional endpoint protection platforms gives. I hope that answers your question. All right, another question. Sorry, I cannot answer you in French, but I'll try to understand the question that you wrote. So you're comparing our solution with a competitive vendor, and I think you are saying that they already have XDR on top of that solution. Well, you will find it also in our portfolio. If you take a look at expert level, you can easily find the XDR proposition there. Sorry for that, and bonjour also, but I just cannot maybe understand completely your question and answer in French also. Can EDR be deployed in server Linux system? I don't have exact data about the expert level solutions. I think we have it for maybe some years in the development. But talking about the Kaspersky Endpoint Security Cloud, unfortunately not. That solution doesn't have a Linux agent. We have Linux agent at our more mature solutions. So just contact our sales representatives, our team, about the expert level security, and I think they will be ready to answer your questions in technical details, or maybe propose it to you if this is ready. Another question, how EDR works in air-gapped IT systems? Pretty interesting question. We actually have solutions that can be completely installed in air-gapped networks, that can be installed in the on-premise. I think there are some technical specifics of how the telemetry is actually stored. I'm not sure that all the telemetry can be stored right on the premise, right on the hardware or virtualized server in your premise. But I think there are solutions. For example, we have the same approach with our Kaspersky private security network. Many of our customers cannot afford to send their telemetry to the cloud, to our KSM that is located in the cloud, but they can order additional service and build KPSN, Kaspersky Private Security Network, at their place. I'm not sure that it can be done with EDR today, but I think we can just take a look at that in details and maybe contact with you or maybe show it in our further webinars. Thank you for that question again. Does Kaspersky EDR works with Kaspersky Sandbox only? My environment is pure air-gapped. I definitely can say that EDR work with Sandbox. I think that today it's limited to our Sandbox. Sorry, I do not have technical details about that solution because I don't actually own it, and I'm not the product marketing manager for that solution. But as far as I know, today we have cloud Sandbox, and the EDR is capable to transfer telemetry there. Maybe there are technical capabilities for the integration, but to my mind, we do not have publicly available materials about third-party integration with some other Sandbox in place. All right. I'm checking whether we have some additional unanswered questions here. Yeah, another question here. Is there a difference between cloud and local on-premise endpoint detection response? Well, actually, there is some technical differences. First of all, of course, in the management approach. Yeah, if we're talking about the cloud, you can just manage your system using the web browser anywhere. You don't need a secured connection to a particular hardware or virtualized server. But it's also important to know that cloud solutions, in many cases, may not have capabilities to store telemetry for a long period. For example, Kaspersky Endpoint Security Cloud can store telemetry for 30 days. But in most cases, for small and medium-sized companies, that's more than enough. Again, if we're talking about storing telemetry, for example, in expert-level solutions, I think we have options to buy more storage. If we need this, we can just have it to store telemetry for a much longer period than just 30 days. So I think that these are the only the only differences between cloud and local endpoint detection and response. If we talk about the capabilities, in many cases they are similar, because EDR solutions are targeted to focus on specific needs, on specific scenarios. So the technology under the hood is the same. How many Kaspersky EDR can be deployed in the network? Well, I guess the question is related to the number of the agents that can be, supported by the single server, maybe, or by the couple servers. So it depends on the solution that you try to implement. First of all, when we talk about Kaspersky Endpoint Security Cloud, you can have up to 1,000 users. When we talk about the users, again, the user can have a computer, it may be the file server, and the user also may have mobile devices. So there is a technical limitation. If we talk about, for example, EDR Optimum or EDR Expert, there is no such limitation. We've seen environments where EDR can easily hold the amount of several thousands of devices, and it's not the limit. So that's pretty easily supported. Another interesting question. Can Kaspersky EDR work with KSC? Guess you are familiar with our products, and you know that KSC is Kaspersky Security Center. And answering, first of all, yes, It's pretty simple. It has the same console. If you're, for example, having a Kaspersky EDR Optimum or Kaspersky EDR Expert, you will work with the same console. You will have the same Kaspersky Security Center. Does Kaspersky EDR work across multi-cloud, including container or microservice environments? Pretty complicated question for me. I think I don't have technical details about this here. Sorry, I cannot answer your question, but anyway, I've mentioned it, and I think we will be ready to cover it in the upcoming webinars, of course. By the way, thank you, dear attendees, for interesting questions. I see many of those are related to air-gapped environments, to the capability of working with third-party sandbox and working with multi-cloud environments and container microservice architecture. I cannot answer now on those questions, but anyway, we'll not forget about this. All right, I think we have pretty much every question answered. Anyway, we have some more minutes to wait for others. We have some more questions. Yeah, another one question that I've not answered yet. Can I integrate customized in-house IOCs and IOAs? So indicators of compromise and indicators of the attack. It depends on the solution you're using. If we're talking about Kaspersky Endpoint Security Cloud that I've been showing today, it's pretty easy. You can just input the IOCs in the system. Yes, you need to do it manually because it is pretty simplified user interface. The solution is not really targeted for customers who are doing day-by-day threat hunting, for the customers who have security analysts in place. Most of the cases, the small and medium-sized companies have single IT specialist on site that has to deal all the problems. But if you're talking about expert-level solutions, of course, there are ways to implement customizable indicators of the attacks there. By the way, those solutions are capable of working at least with indicators of the attacks. Smaller solutions and solutions that are brought like software as a service, like Kaspersky Endpoint Security Cloud, for now can work only with indicator of compromise, and you need to implement it manually to just describe it into the system. But it's pretty easy. That's just a simple MD5 hashes. All right. Another question, what about EDR and Kuma? Well, it's hard for me to answer the question because I'm not familiar with the Kuma solution. I know that that's the comprehensive CM system. And well, since I'm not responsible for that product, I cannot answer you exactly whether there are some means of integrations with those. And I think we can note that question and answer it later. Thank you for this. But unfortunately, I do not have any information now talking about the Kaspersky Endpoint Security Cloud in the first place. Okay, thank you for all your questions. I don't see any new ones coming in. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your questions. They were really interesting. They were really complicated and comprehensive. And it's really a pleasure to see people who are digging deep in the process of threat hunting, in the understanding of the concepts behind that, and to see people who are familiar with our solutions. I hope it has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for attending today in our session.